Have you ever had someone come up to you and simply say, "Follow me"? I mean, what would you think? Seriously, what would you do if this were to ever happen to you? Say you're just standing there in your work and a man comes up and says, "Follow me." What a daring request. So what do? Do you drop your nets? Do you walk out of the office? Do you leave everything behind and follow this man, this stranger, into the unknown? This scene with Philip and Nathanael never truly made any sense to me. Because for me, I have a hard time leaving my comfort zone to go on a trip with friends, let alone a stranger. But they do. They drop it all and they follow Jesus. Off of what? Well, Jesus just says to Philip, "Follow me." And Nathanael goes off of Jesus seeing him under a fig tree. To me, this scene seems so unrelatable, perhaps even irresponsible. I mean, what would make you leave everything you ever knew to follow this man, this rabbi? To answer this question, the calling of the apostles, Christian writer Rob Bell once described the religiosity of this era, the education, the common religious aspirations, the reverence of rabbis in this time and this region. You see, every child, beginning around the age 6, would begin to memorize the Torah. That's the first 5 books of the Old Testament. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. I'm not talking about being read, memorized. They would complete this education called Bet Sefer around the age of 10. And you see, for most kids, they would stop there. That was enough education. They would move on and they would begin to learn the family business. But the best of Bet Sefer would go on to what is called Bet Talmud, and they would memorize the rest of the Hebrew scripture, all the prophets, all the laws, the stories, the Psalms, memorized. And after years of that, after years of study and memorization, if they succeeded, if they were the best of Bet Talmud, the next step would have them go to a rabbi, the most coveted of teachers, and say, "I want to be your disciple. I want to know what you know." Or as Rob Bell would say, "I think I can do what you do." Because that's what a rabbi wanted. Someone to carry on his interpretation, his theology, his tradition. And to learn from a rabbi, well, they would only take the best of the best of the best. This education was called Bet Midrash. And to get it, you would go to a rabbi and you would say, "I want to do what you do." And he would grill you with all sorts of questions to see if you were good enough, if you were smart enough, if you were passionate and driven enough to be just like him. Because that's what a disciple meant. The pupil that would one day become like the teacher. And in the end, if you didn't cut it, he would say, "Sure, kid, you're smart. You've memorized your stuff, but I don't think you can do what I do. I think you should just go off. All that years of education, go off, go back and learn your family business." Now here's the thing about the disciples of the rabbi named Jesus. They weren't the best. They didn't go out and seek Jesus. Rather, he found them, and he didn't find them in the temples. He found them, many of the followers, including Andrew and perhaps even Nathanael, near the water. They were fishermen, meaning they had left the temple education years ago to learn the family trade. This meant that they weren't the best of the best of the best. They weren't worthy of Bet Midrash. And yet Jesus calls them, "Follow me." In response to Jesus' calling of the disciples, Rob Bell says, Jesus chose them because his movement is for everybody. It's for rich, it's for poor, women, men, it's for educated and uneducated, it's for peasants and scholars. It's a movement of anybody's. He calls them to be his disciples, and they change the course of human history. I love this because it's a reminder that anybody can be a follower of Jesus. You don't have to have any unique ability. You don't need to have the Bible memorized. You don't need to have a 3 years master's degree from some seminary or some certificate from a bishop. You don't even need to pick up your entire life like the apostles did. You just need to hear the words of Jesus, "Follow me," and respond. As Christians, we are all called into the ministry of, as our presiding bishop calls, the loving, life-giving, liberating movement. And I think it's sometimes that we find this calling too difficult, too overwhelming to even begin. We struggle where to start, like our actions must be grand, larger than life to be a part of this loving, liberating, life-giving movement of God's. And in moments when I feel paralyzed by the enormity of God's calling, it's at moments like these that I find Frederick Buechner's words calming and helpful. He wrote, "The place where God calls you is the place where your deep gladness meets the world's deep hunger." We're all trying to find that relationship where our skills, our creativity, our joys and passions meet the world's needs. Y'all, this world is hungry for compassion and empathy. It's hungry for neighborliness and community and justice. The world is hungry for kindness and generosity. You don't have to emulate your neighbor's 3-week mission trip across the globe to be a follower of Jesus Christ. Christianity at its best is not a world where every person is a minister or a missionary or even an apostle, but a collective society that has chosen to follow and share their deep gladness with a world in need. And so I guess the question this week, as we remember the calling of the disciples, and in response, we think of our own Christian calling. It seems like this question is threefold. Where is your joy? Where is their need? And how do they meet? That is your ministry. I love you. God bless you. And goodbye for now.